Hello.
Hello.
Good morning.
Hi, Junaid. Good morning. Okay, start.
Yesterday actually join అయ్యాను నేను ఒక 5-10 minutes లేట్ అయింది సార్ అంతే.
ఓకే ఓకే
మీరు వెయిట్ చేశారు అని మళ్ళీ చెప్పింది అమ్మాయి.
ఇట్స్ ఓకే.
ఓకే సార్.
So can you give me a brief introduction about yourself? Like your background and your introduction to SQL servers or any other database things, whatever skills you have.
యాక్చువల్లీ అదే ఎస్క్యూఎల్ వస్తుంది సార్ నాకు. అంటే నేను ఐటీ కూడా అంటే ఫస్ట్ యాక్చువల్గా నాన్ టెక్నికల్ అనమాట. తర్వాత ఐటీ షిఫ్ట్ అయ్యాను. యాక్చువల్లీ ట్రిపుల్ బ్యాక్గ్రౌండ్ అది. ఎలక్ట్రికల్ చేసేవాడిని. మళ్ళీ ఐటీకి షిఫ్ట్ అవ్వాలనుకుంటే ఇది మా ఫ్రెండ్ ఏం చేశారంటే నెట్వర్కింగ్ చేశాను. సిసిఎన్ఏ చేసి ఓన్లీ సిసిఎన్ఏ మీద జాబ్స్ లేవు అనమాట. అప్పటికి ఇంకా లాక్డౌన్ స్టార్ట్ అయిపోయింది. గవర్నమెంట్ జాబ్స్ ట్రై చేసుకున్నా, అది ఫెయిల్ రాలేదు. ట్రై చేస్తున్నా. బట్ తర్వాత మా ఫ్రెండ్ ఏం చెప్పాడంటే సిసిఎన్ఏ మీద ట్రై చేయమని. ఓన్లీ సిసిఎన్ఏ రాలేదు జాబ్స్. నేను మెల్లగా అట్లే సర్చింగ్లో ఇట్లా ఇది డేటా కమ్ డెవలపర్ అని సుధాకర్ అని ఒక పరిచయం అయ్యారు. దాంట్లో డేటా కమ్ డెవలపర్గా చేశాను. సి ప్లస్ నెట్వర్కింగ్, ఇంకా లినక్స్ మామూలుగా అది చేసి ఇట్లే సేమ్ ప్రాసెస్లోనే వెళ్ళి 1 year వరకు చేశాను సార్. విప్రోలో 10 months అబోవ్ అట్లా చేశాను. తర్వాత హెల్త్ ఇష్యూ వల్ల డ్రాప్ అయిపోయింది. ఇప్పుడు మోస్ట్లీ 1 year అయిపోతుంది. 10 months అవుతుంది ఇప్పటికి డ్రాప్ అయ్యి. సేమ్ అది ఇది అప్పటికే మధ్యలో ఎస్క్యూఎల్ నేర్చుకున్నాను కదా నేను. సేమ్ ఇలా ఎస్క్యూఎల్ ప్లస్ ఎస్ఎస్ఐఎస్ దాన్ని చూపిస్తానని చెప్పేసి ఒక అన్న చెప్పాడు. బట్ నేను నేర్చుకోలేదు, ఎస్ఎస్ఐఎస్ నేర్చుకోలేదు. ఓన్లీ ఎస్క్యూఎల్ నేర్చుకున్నా. ఇంకా తర్వాత
So what do you know about SQL?
SQL.
Like any introduction to SQL? Have you worked on that SQL things?
SQL is a language which is used to manipulate or modify the data.
Okay. So have you ever worked on the SQL thing?
No, sir.
Okay. I see another guy. Hello, Ramesh. Hi, Ramesh.
Hi.
Okay. So can you just give me a quick introduction about you?
Yeah, I am Ramesh. I'm working as a Snowflake admin. Yeah, so I just wanted to know some SQL query, how it's basic thing like basic. I know SQL. I wanted to know some like advanced level, like what type of the query, like inner joins and outer joins which are going on. I wanted to understand. So that's why I'm trying to learn the SQL.
Okay. Fine. So, okay. So let's start. So today we are here to learn about SQL Server and SQL. Okay. So SQL Server is an relational database management system. Okay. So usually we call it as a database server. Okay. Where the primary function of the data server is storing the data, and it will retrieve the data whenever requested by a user. Okay. It is just simple. It will just store the data and we can retrieve the data whenever we want. Okay. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Any questions on the DBMS thing?
No.
So why do we need to store the data, and how can we retrieve the data, and how can we store the data? So we will just see them. Okay. Yeah. So Ramesh, you're working on Snowflake, right?
Yes.
So how do you relate SQL Server to Snowflake? Do you see any similarities there?
Yeah. Like both are from cloud based.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I don't know much about SQL Server. I know only on Snowflake. I have ideas on Snowflake. It's a cloud based data warehouse, and it's have a three architecture like cloud service and compute service and storage service.
Okay.
And cloud service like everything basic things like infrastructure facility management, everything will be taken care by cloud service.
Okay. Fine. So like how you have storage tier here in SQL Server also, we have everything. It is not on cloud. It is like on premises server, which we install in Windows systems. And recently we can use that on Linux systems also. Okay.
Okay.
So it is not on cloud. Basically, you should remember that it is just an on-premise server. Okay.
Okay.
So the most of the advanced facilities which are available on Snowflake, like auto scaling, providing user, like it will be easy in Snowflake with UI based interaction. But in coming to SQL Server, it is not easy to upscale things, unlike upgrading the performance of the Snowflake. So easy to access easy to access is not available in Snowflake server. I mean in SQL Server. Okay,
Okay.
fine. So yeah, as I said, SQL Server is a database server, like whose primary function is to store the data and will retrieve the data whenever requested by software applications or any user. Okay. So,
Okay.
so Ramesh, can you please go on mute?
Sure.
Let's see. I'm having some disturbance. Yeah. So SQL in coming to software applications, like how we are using SQL Server in software applications. Okay, I'll just give you a quick introduction about that. So for any software application, let's say your bank application or any your food online shopping application, so everything will have like basically two things. One is front end and one is back end. Okay. So front end is what you see and what you operate in your mobile or in your desktop. So whenever you enter a website, so you will see a web page, right? So that will load in the browser. So that is what we called as front end. Okay, it is all related to HTML, CSS. So based and Java things. So based on all those things, so we will be preparing a web page, so where the user can interact. Okay. And so whatever the data that is getting loaded into that web page is in the background. So there will be a storage systems, not only SQL Server. So we have in market, we have different kinds of storage systems. So based on their requirement. Okay. So we have we have other RDBMS systems such as Teradata, Oracle, Sybase, PostgreSQL. All these are what RDBMS systems. Okay. So basically, all this data, whatever is stored inside the SQL Server, so will be loaded into the web page. Okay. So and simultaneously, whatever the information you provide in the UI, like when you sign up, you'll be giving your username, your email ID, your phone number, all those details. All those details will be stored in the background. Okay, in a storage system. Okay. So SQL Server is also one of such kind of storage system. So where we can use it as a background application to support the software any application. Okay. Is it clear?
Yes.
Yeah. So, so let's talk about SQL. So any RDBMS system. So either it may be SQL, Snowflake, Teradata, Oracle, any RDBMS system. So we'll use a language called SQL. We call it a structured query language. Okay. So we use SQL to retrieve the data, or to insert the data, or to put the data into the storage systems, or to retrieve the data from the storage systems. We use a language called SQL. Okay. That we call as a structured query language. So we will, in this course, we are going to learn more about SQL Server, like how to use SQL Server, how to write SQL queries in the SQL Server. Okay. Clear?
Sir.
Any doubts here?
Sorry, RDBMS, nothing but the storage purpose, sir.
Yeah, every
And,
RDBMS is like primarily purpose to store the data.
can you please give examples of that, sir?
Examples as like, yeah, I can say the Oracle, SQL Server, the Teradata, all these
Okay.
things are example of those RDBMS systems. Okay. So we
Okay.
call them as relational database management systems. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So every RDBMS system will have a storage system again. Okay.
Okay.
So it will have an UI interface where you can write any queries to retrieve the data from the storage system. Okay. So here, we store the data in the form of tables in every RDBMS. Okay. So we can kind of make a relation between each tables. Like, we'll be having different kinds of data. So we'll be having customer data, will be having products data, we will be having sales data. Okay. So we'll be having different kinds of data stored in one DB, in one database. Okay. So we will be able to make a relation between all these tables. Okay. So such that, we can prepare a meaningful data for our hierarchy, for our business purposes, for our analysis purposes, how a product is doing, how a customer is working, how a customer is doing. Okay. So how much sales we are getting. So all these kinds of data, all these kinds of analysis we will be able to do on top of the data. Okay. Clear?
Okay.
Yes.
So are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. So in this course, we'll be able to learn how to retrieve data from SQL Server using SQL language. Okay.
Okay.
So we will see here the DML commands, DDL commands. Just a minute, sorry. And TCL commands. And so we will be seeing stored procedures, views, functions, and we will be learning on different data types in SQL Server. So, and we have something called T-SQL in a SQL. So that is something which are related to mostly, we call it as a transaction SQL. Okay. So that also we will learn in this course. And additionally, we have something called triggers. Cursors. indexes, constraints. Okay. So we will be dealing with all these things in our SQL query course, in this course. Okay. So we will be starting with one by one. So in the basic thing is, so we'll start with TDL commands, okay, and DDL commands, DML commands, okay. So let me show you. So where we have to run these SQL requirements, we have something called SSMS, okay. That is called SQL Server Management System. Let me open up that for you. So that is the interface where we will write the SQL queries, okay. So the SSMS will be integrated to different platforms. It will be having SQL Server agent. It will be having SQL. It will be having a database engine. It will be having the SQL Server. It will be integrated with SQL Server. It will be integrated with other MSBI things, BI platforms such as SSIS, SSRS, and SSAs. Okay, so we will be dealing with all these things in the coming classes. Okay. So can you see the screen, SQL Server? Hello?
No, sir. No.
Okay. Now?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So this is the SQL SSMS, we call it. This is called SQL Server Management Studio, which is the UI interface which we use to run SQL queries. So in Ramesh, in Snowflake also you'll be having such a kind of interface, right?
Yes,
Cloud-based interface. So where you run your queries.
yes. In Snowflake, most of the things in user interface only. Only
Yeah.
yeah. We have to write in. It will be like center side. We have to write the query and we have to run the
Yeah.
query. Rest of the things will be everything will be more like
all UI based mostly.
Yes.
Yeah. So here the most of the things are not UI based. Okay. So for everything, so we might have to write a query. So here also we have some UI based things, but it is the best practice while learning SQL language to write the queries. Okay. In SQL, if you have options in Snowflake, we'll be able to use them. So we can use them, but the best practice is to learn how to write the queries instead of opting for UI in SQL Server. You can just kind of write a query for doing anything, like for retrieving the data, or for to create a table, to create a function or a view, or to retrieve the data for inner joins, for everything. So it is best practice to write the query here. Okay. So yeah, coming back to SSMS. So if you see here, so we have something called server type right here. If you check in the server type, we have four things here. One is database engine, one is analysis services, one is reporting services, and another one is integration services. So each one is different. So when you were talking about database engine, so this is the place where we will be we will be able to process the stored data, and the same engine will be handling your storage part. The same database engine will be handling your storage part, and whatever the queries or whatever the transformation queries you run in SSMS, so that will be run on the database engine. Okay. So all the remaining three parts we will discuss when we talk about BI platform. Okay. So for now, so I'm connecting to database engine. I'm selecting my server type as database engine. So whenever you install this SSMS, okay, so this all these things will be installed defaultly. You can select them, and for everything, for every database engine, so it will assign a server name, so which you can connect to. Okay, so this is my default server name, the which SSMS has given me. So we have an option of renaming them. Okay. So right now, so whenever this SSMS is on my local system in my laptop. So whenever the same SSMS is installed on cloud systems like, AWS or Azure, so they'll be having some remote desktop systems. So in AWS, we call it as EC2 instances. So that is like a virtual machine for you. So you can install the same SSMS there also. It will be just like a Windows system for you. You can install the same SSMS there, and the server names might change there. So there, instead of a name like this, you will get some IP addresses. We can connect to SSMS based on any random name, like whatever the server name, or the IP addresses given by the system. Okay, so both of them you can use. Okay, and so you can for the database engine, you can say set a security level as well. You can assign an username and password for them also for others to access. For suppose, let's say this SSMS is on my system. Okay, so I haven't created any username and password for that. Since I am the sole and one and only user for this SSMS, I haven't created any username and password. But even if you're a single user, you can create a username and password, but I haven't done that. So I can just use the Windows authentication. Windows authentication is nothing but the username and password which you're using to log in to your laptop. So whenever you try to open a laptop, it will ask you the password, right? The same credentials you can use here also. So that is Windows authentication. And one more is SQL Server authentication. So SQL Server authentication is used like, whenever you have a team, so whenever you have other members that are using the same server, okay, you can give each member a role-based access, like or the user access, so which way they can log in based on their credentials, based on their Windows credentials, or you can assign this database engine or this server as username and password that is specific to the database engine, this server. So everyone in the team can use the same credentials, same database credentials to log into this server. Okay. Clear about this authentication? Hello?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So here I'm trying to connect to my database engine using Windows authentication. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. See, so I'm connected to database engine of my server now. So you have different objects here. So databases, security, server object, replication, and the management things, integration, SQL Server agent things, where you'll have all the jobs, automated jobs that run on schedule. Okay. Yeah. So we will talk about databases now. So inside the databases, so we'll have different. These are all the databases. If you see here, we have AdventureWorks, we have development, we have production, we have report servers. All these are all databases. Okay. So database is nothing but a collection of I can say different object in SQL. In SQL perspective, it is a collection of different objects of the SQL. So objects as an we have tables, we have views, we have functions, we have stored procedures, we have constraints, everything. So whatever you are going to store in SQL Server, that will be stored in the form of tables here. Okay. So to retrieve the data, to be able to work on those tables, we have different other different objects like the views, stored procedures, functions. On top of those stored information, on top of those tables only, we will be working. We'll be kind of creating a different objects based on our requirement. Okay. So if you expand any one of the database, you will see all those things. We have tables, we have views, and we have stored procedures, we have functions. Okay. See, inside the tables, we will have some keys, we will have constraints, we will have triggers, indexes. All those things will be inside the database engine itself. Okay. So that is the part in SQL Server where we will be storing the data and where our queries will run. Okay. Clear? Any doubts here? Okay. So coming back to SQL language, structured query language, SQL. So let's see how we can write some basic queries today. Okay. So if you see here, this is a database which I have already. These are the database which I have already in my SQL server. Okay. Now let's create a database for ourselves. Okay. So for creating a database also, so we have to write a query. So there is a practice, basically if you right click here on the databases, you'll get some options. You get some options like new database, attach a database, or restore a database, and some other options you'll get. Okay. But instead of going for the UI, you can write a query here. Okay. The same thing, like you can just write create. Create is so whenever you open SQL Server, whatever the string, whatever the words you see in blue color are called keywords. Okay. So keywords, they're nothing but which we use in SQL language, like they're kind of predefined for a function. So every string that is in blue, that is for a function, that will be used for some function like this. So we are writing the create keyword, right? So this will be used create an object in SQL Server, whether it might be table, it might be function, or it might be a view. Okay. Anything. So if you want to create anything, so this is the create is the keyword. Okay. Any confusion, any doubts here? Hello.
No confusion here.
Okay. So now now we are trying to create a database here. Okay. I'll just pin this. Okay. Yeah. So let's try to create a database for ourselves. So I'll be creating. So create, and what you want to create here. We want to create a database, right? So just write database. And you have to provide the database name for the database. So practice. Okay. So now I'm trying to create a database practice. That is my database name. If you see here, you can see two words in blue color. It means both of them are keywords. Okay. So this keyword is used whenever you're trying to create anything, any object in SQL Server, and it represents the item which you are going to create is a database, right? So this represents that one. So and this is the database name. So this is the syntax which you have to use while creating a database in SQL Server. Okay. Let's run this. So in SQL Server, whenever you want to run a query, okay, so either you can use Alt X, which is a shortcut on your keyboard, or you can just use execute command here, or you can just press F5, function key F5. So if anything will run your query. So here I'm just using Alt X. So it says command completed successfully. That means our database has been created here. Okay. Let's go and refresh the server. So if you see, our database is created now here. Okay. So inside the database, so all the partitions will be already created, uh, like the tables, views, the stored procedure functions. So the partitions will be automatically created for you. You don't have to place a table. You don't have to specify a location for a table to store, or you don't have to specify a location for each object that where it has to be placed. So everything based on their functionality. So that will be divided, and that will be stored under their names. automatically. Okay, clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Clear.
First, we will discuss about DDL commands. Okay. So DDL commands are nothing but we call them as data definition languages. Okay. So they are meant to create a definition for different objects inside our SQL server. Okay. So like I said, let's say we talk about tables. Okay. So when we talk about tables, I said they will be in the form of columns and rows. A table will be having columns and rows, right? So whatever the data we enter in a table, that will be stored in a form of row, which the table is already having the column names. Okay, the column names which are already in the table are kind of predefined by us. Okay. So if you see any of the table here, you can see the column names, right? So the column names in a table are kind of predefined by us. So each column will have a different name, and each column will store a different type of data. No, so if you see here, we have a column called ID, right? And we have a column called CNAME. So both the columns will store different type of data. They might be related to the same item. The data might be same, like let's say we have a customer data. Okay, let's say we are the customer. So a customer will be having different type of data. So he will be having an ID, he will be having a name, he will be having some address, he will be having some phone number, right? Okay. So coming to so the data is same, the data is all about customer. Okay, but every different aspect of that customer, every different data of that related to customer is of different data type. Okay. So when we are talking about numbers, that is called some ID or phone numbers. Those are all numbers. That is the data related to some numbers. That means we can take the data type as integer. Okay. And so whatever the things come under come in alphabets, that we can take the data type as varchar and nvarchar. They are like different data types which we are going to discuss in further classes. Okay, just keep it in mind. So every data will be having its own individual data type. Okay, so while creating the table itself, we have to specify what is the name of the column and what is the data type that we are going to store in that column. Okay, so that things we have to define. So whenever we are going to create a table. Okay, any doubts? Okay. So in DDL command, coming to DDL commands, let's so we have different kinds of DDL commands which we'll go to. So one of the thing is, first one is create. Okay. So create means we are trying to create a definition for an object in SQL Server. Okay. So all these tables, stored procedures, views or functions. Okay. So all these are called as objects in SQL Server. So whenever we are trying to create something in SQL Server, we have to define its structure, like how it is going to be, what are the names of the columns, what is the kind of data that we are going to store, what is that type of what data type the column is using. So all these things we have to specify while creating an object. Okay, so that is one thing, create is one thing. So another one is alter. Okay, so whatever the things you have already created, if you want to alter them or if you want to modify them, you can use this alter. And there is something called drop. Sorry. So drop is something exactly opposite to create. Okay, so it will kind of delete that object from your database or from your SQL server. Okay, the other thing is truncate. So truncate is also another DDL function which we will discuss. Okay, and if we have other type of command which we call as DML commands. Okay, under DML commands we have insert, delete, update, and the select command which we use also comes under DML, but let's not put it under DML. Okay, and we have something called data control language, but we don't much use them as data. I mean, in real time, we don't much call them as data control language. We just call them as transaction language. That's it. It is this is data control. This is data definition language, and this is data manipulation language, and this is data control language. Okay, we can use grant or begin, commit, rollback. So all these things comes under DCL language. Okay, DCL commands. Okay, so let's try to discuss one by one. So first we will start with DDL, data definition language commands, like how to use create. Okay, so first let's try to create something. So we will try to create a table. Okay, so like I said, everything that comes in blue is a keyword, so that will have a specified function as an inbuilt. Okay, let's try to create a table. So create, we have written create. So what we are trying to create here, we are trying to create a table. So you have to give table, okay, and the table name. So let's say I'm going to create a table for customers. Okay, so this is the table name which I'm giving. Okay, so as I said, table will have columns, right? So the whatever the rows that are available in the table are called data, or we refer to them as data that will be inserted by us. The data will be inserted by us again after creating the table. Inside into the table, we insert the data. So to insert the data into table, the table should be already there with the required columns and the data types required for that columns. Okay. So now for a table, so let's try to create columns. Okay. I'm creating customer number, customer name, so these are all the different columns which I want in my table. Okay, so one is customer number, I mean you can call it a customer ID, and the another one is customer name, and another one is customer branch. So which branch does this customer belongs to? Okay, so as I said, say every different column will be having every different data type. So based on the data, based on what kind of data we enter, either we are entering some numbers in that column, or we are entering some alphabets, or we are entering some special characters in that column. So based on the data, so you will have to create the data types for these columns. Okay, in the customer ID, I'm going to give him some ID, like kind of roll number kind of thing, I can say. So those will be numbers. So for that purpose, I'll be choosing integer for this column. Okay. For the customer names, I'll be entering some string kind of data, some alphabets kind of data. So I can choose some data type called varchar. Okay. And in varchar, the thing is you can specify the length of the data. That is, you can specify the maximum length of the string that you are going to enter into the table. So I'm going to enter just 20 characters. So the customer name cannot be more than 20 characters. Okay. The same customer branch also is entered in strings like in alphabets. So the same thing we can take here, the varchar data type. Okay. The same. So I'm giving the limit as 20 for varchar. Okay. Let's try to execute this command. So it says the table is created. So it says command completed successfully. If you go to practice, if you can just refresh it here. In say in the tables section, if you see, if you expand, okay, sorry. Okay, so one more thing. So whenever you're trying to create a table, okay, you have to check. So in which database you are trying to create a table. Okay. So here, if you see this section in this ribbon, you see something, you see the list of databases what are available in our SQL server. Okay. So right now it is pointing to master database. Okay. So whatever the database, whatever the table I have created here, so that will be created in master database, not in our practice database. Okay. So if you want to create a table in our practice database, either you can change the database to practice here in the UI. Okay. Or you can write a SQL thing, use practice, use database practice. Okay. So this, so even though here in the ribbon, it is pointing to some other database. So whenever you write a query like this, use practice DB and run this whole query. So it will kind of create the table in this thing. Okay. If I go and refresh the database now, you'll see something called customers table here. Inside the tables, you'll see something called customers table created here. Okay. So this is where you have to see the UI way as well as the query way. You have to practice both the things. Okay. The basic way of learning SQL is, if you want to get strong hold on SQL, try to write the queries for everything. Instead of using the AI thing here, whatever is available here. Okay. So you try to write a query for everything. Okay. Any doubts here?
Okay.
Yeah, sir.
Yeah.
I want to. In Snowflake, when we are creating a table, right?
Mm-hmm.
In database, first we create a database,
Yeah.
then we are creating a schema, then we are creating a table. Here I
Yes.
didn't see any schema.
Yes.
Yes.
So here in SQL also the schema concept is there, but so here if while creating a table, I haven't used any schema, right? So let's say this is my schema name. Okay. DBO dot is my schema name. Okay. This is the default schema, which is available in SQL Server. If you go to the practice database, you see something called DBO dot. You see something called DBO before the table name, right? That is
Yes.
the schema. That is the schema name here. That is the default schema name. So like, you'll be having something called public in your Snowflake, right? In Snowflake, we'll be having something called public
Yeah,
as a
public.
default schema name. Okay.
Yes.
So even though if you don't if you write a query, if you try to create a table by writing the query, so by default, your worksheet or your workspace is connected to the default schema and your default workspace, right? So even though if you don't specify the schema name while creating a table, so it will be automatically created in the public schema, right?
Yes.
So the same way, so even though if I don't give any particular schema name while creating an object, so that will be by default created in DBO schema. DBO means database owner. Okay. So
Okay.
it will be automatically created inside this schema. So if you want to create the table in some other schema other than a default one, okay. So you have to specify the schema name here. Okay. While creating the table, you have to specify the schema name and along with the table name. Okay. So, but
Yes.
I haven't created any other schema name here for this database. So if you have to use some user defined schema name, first you have to create a schema name first, and then you have to make use of that schema name. But I haven't created any schema name. So I'm just going by the default schema names here. Okay. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, okay, let's say, so we have a table, new table created here. Just go to how you go to new workspace, we have something called new query here. It will open up a new query window in SQL Server. Okay. Just go to new query. Now, so let's say here it is pointing to some other database. Okay. Now, I will try to query that table. I'll try to get data from that table. I want to see the table. So how we can see the table? You can just write a select statement. So in SQL or in any other database systems, if you take Oracle, Snowflake, PostgreSQL, Sybase, Teradata, or Redshift, or any other thing, any other database system. So we have something called select, where we use where we can view the data inside the table. The select statement is standard across all the SQL things. Okay. Select star. So star represents to, you can, blindly you can take it as star represents to all. Okay. You can just keep in mind that select means, star means all, everything. Okay. So in any other programming languages or in database languages. Okay. So whenever you see something called star in your queries or in your code, select star represents to all, everything. Okay. So what I'm trying to do is select all and from customers table. Okay. Select it, the star represents to all. Clear? Select everything from the table name. Okay. This is how you query a data from a table. Okay. Any confusions here?
No.
Right. So this is how we query a data from a table. You have to write a select statement. So whenever you write a select statement, this will give you the data of that particular object as an output. Okay. So let's try to execute this query. Okay. Okay. So we have table masters. Okay. Right now I'm in MSDB database. Okay. So my workspace or my new query window is pointing to MSDB database, and I'm trying to query the data from the table which I have created in practice database. Okay. So let's execute this. So I'm getting an error called invalid object name customers. Okay. So whenever you see an error here, okay, so this kind of error, so you have to remember the errors as well. No. So errors teach you, errors will tell you like what is wrong with your query easily. Okay. So whenever you remember an error, you can easily solve any issue or you can debug any query which you write. Okay. So if you see, I have got an error called invalid object name, right? So when we get these kind of errors, that means say either the database name or the object name which you have or the table name which you have given might be wrong. Okay, or else that object is not existing in your database. This can be the two cases. Okay, either the table name might be wrong, you might have given the wrong table name. Okay, or the table name or the object is not available in your database. Okay, so whenever you see this error, you should remember that, because something might be wrong with the name, or the data or that object might not be there in my database. Okay, you understood?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So right now I've got this error. So what does I can think of two things. So my customer table is not correct. But when I check, this is what the table I've created. So the table name is correct. The another case is, so in whatever the database I'm executing this query, so in that database, this table might not be there. Okay. So let me see. So I'm trying to execute in MSDB database, right? So this is the database. So in that database, my table is might not be there. Why? Because we have created it in practice table. Okay. So even though your work window is pointing to this table, so you can query this table. You can just write the table name practice dot dbwood dot customers. Okay. This is a standard naming convention which you have to use for a table. Okay. So when you're dealing with, so right now I'm having only few databases. I have some 4 databases, right? So that is very small. So whenever you go to real-time work, so you'll be having some 15 to 20 databases, and you'll be having a lot of data. You'll be writing a very large queries which involves some joins, some triggers, everything. So just to avoid the confusion, this is the standard practice which you have to use while writing a table name. Okay. So first you have to write the database name, and inside the database in which schema and the table name. Okay. This is the standard practice which you have to use while writing a query. I mean, while specifying an object. Okay. So let's try to execute this query. So now I've got, so my table name is open, so I can see the columns of that particular table. So since I haven't inserted any data into this table, so I don't see any data, but I see an empty table. Okay. Clear?
yes, sir.
Any doubts on this part? Schema and database part? Okay. So even though your workspace or new work window is pointing to other database, so whenever you write the database name and schema name before the table name, so it will be pointing the execution will be pointed to this particular database and particular schema. Okay. Clear? Let's talk about let's move on to other. This is all about create statement. Okay. So create create keyword is not only is not restricted to creating tables only. So we can create other database objects also. So if you want to create any database object inside the SQL, you have to use the keyword called create. Okay. So while creating, you have to define the definition of that object like this. Okay. So based on the functions you'll be having, you'll have to different kinds of definition. The definition might change. Okay. But the create command is common in every object while creating it. Okay. Only the thing is the definition might change. Okay. Clear? Now let's move on to other DDL commands, other data definition language command, that is called drop. Okay. Hello.
Yes, sir.
You guys,
Yes, sir.
yeah. So drop is a DDL command which we used in simple terms, which we use. So we use drop command to delete a database object from the database server. Okay. We are kind of dropping that object from database server. Okay. Just simple. So the same drop. You can use the keyword drop. And what do you want to drop here? I want to drop a table. I want to delete a table. You specify what you want to drop. I want to drop a table. And which table you want to drop? Customers. Okay. So this is a simple syntax for drop. You have to use the drop keyword, and what do you want to drop? A table, a function, a view, or stored procedure, anything you can mention here. So now I want to drop a table, right? So I'm specifying table. And which table you want to drop? I want to drop this customers table. Okay. So if I execute this statement, so I may that this customers table will be deleted from this practice database. Okay. Or else in the UI there is a other way. So like Snowflake, there is an UI way also. You can just right click on the table and you can just click on delete, and the table will be deleted from the database. Okay, this is other way, but this is not recommended in SQL Server. Okay, it is better to write a query than to use UI. Okay, so let's execute this command. Just select this and execute. So I see a message command completed successfully. Now let's go and refresh this database. If you see, the table is deleted from here. Okay. This is how the drop works. It will completely delete an object from the database. Okay. Any doubts here?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay, it's already 9. So we will conclude this class today for here. Okay. So we will continue tomorrow. So any doubts here or any questions on today's classes, or if you want to know more, or if you are interested exclusively in some topics, like you can let me know. We can discuss more when we come to the topic.
Yes, sir. Class is about full of the SQL Server or SQL also. Like in SQL, are we able to write like sub queries? Can we
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
This
we
kind
will
of
deal with
advanced one.
subqueries also.
Okay.
See, this class is all about SQL Server and how to extract data or how to input data to SQL Server by using SQL language. Okay. SQL Server is a system. Okay. So we are accessing that SQL Server system by using SQL language. Okay. So here we are learning the SQL language commands, like how to access SQL Server by using SQL. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So we'll be learning all those types of commands, like subqueries, like I've given you, I've told you, right? So about different objects and concepts. So we'll be learning everything. So we'll be learning joins, subqueries, triggers, cursors, functions, views. So all those things we'll be working. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Mostly focus on TSQL part.
Yeah, TSQL port also we will be checking in this class. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So any other doubts? So like, do you want me to increase the pace, or is this pace fine for you guys?
No, it's fine.
Okay. How about you, Ramesh? Are you good with this? Like, you have already Snowflake experience, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, this might be something like you might have already seen the queries with while learning the Snowflake. Okay.
Oh.
But we can see the basics of those SQL queries which you are writing in Snowflake. Okay. Instead of using the UI thing, so we can kind of learn to use queries for everything here. Okay.
Okay.
Clear? Okay. Fine then. So I'll meet you guys tomorrow. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Fine. Yeah. Thanks, Ramesh. Thanks, Junaid. Bye.
That's, thank you.